Welcome to Not Your Typical Church Ladies, faith conversations for your real life. I'm Vicky, and each week I am joined with my fellow workers in the vineyard, Anne and Karen, to break open the Sunday scriptures and talk about life and faith and everything in between. Join your Not Typical Church Ladies on this journey each week.
Everybody, welcome to Holy Week. We're going to do something a little bit different this week. And instead of offering you one longer podcast, we're going to do a series of mini episodes, I guess, for Palm Sunday, Holy Thursday, Good Friday, and then Easter. So today we're gonna talk about Palm Sunday. This is one of those masses or gospels that's very long. There's a lot going on. We actually have a prelude gospel that happens before Mass even starts, when we get our palms and come on into the sanctuary, and then proceed with the rest of the readings as usual and read the entire Passion this year from Mark's Gospel, because we're in year B.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a lot to look at all at once, but I'm wondering if you ladies have, maybe you want to pick like one thing from Mark's Passion or from any of the readings for Palm Sunday this year that just touched you or moved you, or you have some thoughts about. Maybe we can each just offer like a few little mini insights for this long gospel account we have this week.
I'm always struck by I don't even know what the word would be, maybe like weirdness of the disciples. Maybe that's not the word, but like they were so out there. They're just like, oh, I don't know what's going on. Yet Jesus continued to stay with them and love them and nurture them and to give them guidance. And it always strikes me, especially with Peter denying Jesus. And he's like, oh, I'm never going to do that. I'm never going to do that. And then the cock crows, he just starts sobbing. Done that. We're like, oh, no, we would never do that. We would never do that. And then we turn around and we do it and we're like, oh my gosh. And just the turmoil during that time, like what he must have been processing and going through to be so scared that he unconsciously denied who he said he wouldn't.
Right.
And just like how many times can we relate to that? So I think like that's one thing that I'm always struck at during this reading is when they say, and he broke down and wept. And it's such like, I mean, it didn't say like he realized and cried, he broke down and wept because he knew what he had just done. So those words just like hit me every time.
Well, it really makes the relationship between Jesus and his disciples real. You watch them, starting from like Holy Thursday through the whole, promise to be there with him and then fail at it like over and over and over again.
Yeah.
But it wasn't just like, words on a page or a story. Like this was a relationship, right? They had changed their whole lives to follow Jesus already, but they had so much to learn and so far to go before they were able to really, really understand what it meant to folw him.
Yeah. And like they couldn't even stay awake.
Yeah. Right.
They're just like, they were overcome with exhaustion and they couldn't even do a simple task of staying awake. And the idea of like, I don't think we still understand the greatness of what Jesus encountered. And they were there in it and they didn't understand. And after,
imagine, this is like your best friend who's it's his last night on earth and you don't show up for him.
Yeah.
The regret that would come from failing someone you loved in that kind of way.
Right.
Oh,
yeah.
Man. Yeah.
Like
it was your last chance. It was your last chance to be with him.
Yeah. Like, I don't know if you guys have ever thought of this, but like if I leave the house and I don't say goodbye or I love you to the kids or Jeremy, I'm always like, oh my gosh, what if something happens and my last words were, hurry up and get in the car? Like that's
Yes,
how
every day.
yeah, right. So like that's how I presume that the disciples were. They're all like, as soon as Jesus died, they're like, that was my last moment with him.
Mhm.
And this is what I did.
I know.
Those are
And
my
the flip of that too, Karen, I was thinking, as a parent, because we might have had a moment in our house this morning when my teenagers might have gone off to the bus and I might have said, have a great day, guys. I love you. And they might have both walked out without even saying anything to me. And I might have closed the door and looked at my husband and said nothing, but just gave him, that marital look you have. And he's like, well, it's better than getting yelled at. You didn't get yelled at this morning. And I was like, but like, so from Jesus's perspective, right? Like all he wanted was for everybody to understand how loved they were.
right.
That's why he came. And like, but he didn't get to see, he didn't get it back. He poured all this love out and I just feel like parenting teenagers and working in youth ministry out too, when you're like, you just want them to understand how much God loves them. You just want them to know they're loved. You just want them to know they have a call. And like, a lot of times your love gets rejected, overlooked, taken for granted. So like, I think through this whole Holy Week, just like sometimes drawing near to Jesus's suffering is, just those little moments every day when you realize how much God puts out,
Yeah.
how little sometimes we give back, right?
Yeah.
All of us. Vicky, what do you think? What did you pull out of the gospel today?
One of the things that struck me was the idea of how we have to say yes in life. Like Jesus had to say yes repeatedly through this to do what he had to do. And on the opposite, like we were just talking about, the disciples were like, nope, like they couldn't handle it. So it's to enter Holy Week with Jesus saying yes is almost like the reminder, for me at least, of that invitation to walk with him through all of Holy Week. And that, yes, even when it's hard, even when we get to the cross, even when, everything is breaking down, remembering that it's the yes to that relationship. And he said yes for us and did so much for us that then we were called to say yes and not turn away from the ugly parts of what we walk through this week. And how many times in life do we have to say yes to really ugly things at points?
Yeah.
And have to just like go through the mud of it to get to the next part. And Holy Week's kind of almost a reminder of not only Jesus's yes for us and what he did, but also how we have to say yes in difficult things all the time. That was one of the things struck me. And realizing we're going to fail some of that time because the disciples failed too in that call to say yes.
Yeah. I mean, I've mentioned this, I don't even know how many times, but it's one of my favorite quotes is that Jesus didn't call the qualified, he qualified the call. And so he didn't pick people who he knew were going to get it right away. He picked the people that were struggling, and the tax collectors and the sinners and all the outcasts. And we've seen in the scriptures that they dropped everything and just went. And we talked about this last year, like how many of us would have to plan and pack up and say goodbye, and Vicky, that's really true. Like we need to say yes even through the hard. We can't pick and choose when we want to say yes.
Every day another yes, it just looks different. I wanted to just point out my favorite bit of the Holy Week story, the Palm Sunday story, and that is the anointing at Bethany. Like we got to talk about the ladies, right? We got to talk about
the
these
ladies.
So in Mark's gospel, which we're reading, she's not named. She's in Bethany, which is a little bit outside of Jerusalem. It's where Jesus is for the Passover. And she comes with an alabaster jar to anoint Jesus. Now, in some of the other gospels, she's named as Mary of Bethany, so Lazarus and Martha's sister. And this whole family has always fascinated me because I just want to know what Jesus's relationship to them was. Because he stayed at their house his last week on earth. So he knew these, I don't know if they were extended family or old friends but these were people who knew him deeply. And so she comes with this jar of very expensive fragranced oil and she pours it out on Jesus's head. She anoints him for his death, right? And everybody, it says in Mark's gospel, they were infuriated with her. Here's Mark, right? We always talk about how Mark doesn't pull any punches. In other gospels, it'll be Judas spoke against her, but it's they were infuriated with her that she performed this act of love for Jesus, but she was the only one who saw.
Yeah. Oh, wait, say
where
that
he was
again.
headed.
Say that
Right?
again. Only a woman saw.
She was the only one who got it, you guys. She knew where he was going and she blessed him physically with her body, with the most expensive, the best things she could bring. She brought to Jesus and she poured her love out on him in front of everybody else. Right? And she gets, and it just infuriates them. Who knows if it was the money, if it was that she touched him, if it who knows why they were so infuriated. But he's she did a good thing for me. You guys, she did a good thing for me and you won't always have me. She, getting back to what you said about the disciples missing their last moment with Jesus, she's showing us what it looks like.
Yeah. Yeah, I was
There,
after you said they were all infuriated, it came to me. I was maybe they were mad because they didn't think about doing it. They're oh, that would have probably been a nice thing to do.
Well, it's when they fight over, right? Who's going to be first? Who's the highest
Right.
among them? Oh, we should have done that. And now we're mad. And I love the line there because it says she has done what she could. There was very little power she had in knowing what was to happen. And she did the one thing she knew she could for him.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think as we head into Holy Week, that's we're called to be like her, like the woman at Bethany who she saw what suffering was coming for Jesus.
Yeah.
And she understood his purpose and she made herself present to it. And she saw him. She let him know she saw him. So how can we this week, as we enter into this Holy Week, be present?
Way to go, lady.
All right, guys. We want to keep these short and sweet because we got a big week ahead of us. So do you guys have any last thoughts on Palm Sunday before we?
No. Make sure to get your palms.
Yep. All right, you guys. Have a good few days and we'll see you back here on Thursday.
Bye.
Bye. On behalf of Anne, Karen, and myself, thank you again for listening to this episode of Faith Conversations for Your Real Life. Please make sure to subscribe to wherever you're listening or watching this episode. You can find the readings linked in the description box below, and we can't wait to see you again next time on Faith Conversations for Your Real Life with your favorite not so typical church ladies.